Hello paddleboarders, welcome to another SUPboarder video where we're going to be speaking about the Quroc Touring range. A lot of you are going to be watching this video because a lot of you already paddle Qurocs and maybe you're looking to get going faster, further and carry more gear. And this is the range of paddleboards from Quroc you need to be looking at. Quroc, for many of you, don't need much of an introduction. They're a very well-known brand in the UK. They are a direct sell brand and they have made very good inflatable paddleboards in the past. They've been involved with many SUPboarder Pro tests and they have won a lot of those tests as well, including the Touring iSUP test a few years ago. Quroc have always been focusing on giving you good quality SUPs at a good price point, but also making the paddling experience as enjoyable as possible. Whether that be getting yourself into paddleboarding for the first time or getting you out on those mini adventures SUP touring. In this video, I'm going to give you a good overview of the Quroc touring boards, looking at the 4 boards they have in their range, really hopefully helping you understand and decide which board is potentially right for you. But before we get into that, remember guys, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, please give it a subscription. There's loads of SUP and foil content that goes on there weekly, and also check out SUPboarder Mag and SUPboarder Pro as well, which is the next level of SUP content. So the Quroc touring range looks like this. You have 2 12-foot 6 boards at 30 inches wide, one 5 inches thick and the other is 6 inches thick. You have a longer 13-foot board which is 31 inches wide and 6 inches thick, and you have the longest board in the range, the Yukon, which is 14 foot by 28 inches wide and 6 inches thick also. So there's a few more sizes in there to choose from than the original Touring 13-foot which we reviewed a few years ago. I'm going to jump into the 2 12/6s now. So these boards are completely identical except one is 5 inch and the other is 6 inches thick. They both retail at £749, and for that price you do get a full-on package that comes with lots of things: dry bags, carbon paddle, good quality pump. But I'm going to jump into the packages in a bit more detail in a minute. When we weighed the boards, the 6 inch thick board weighed 10.28 kilograms and the 5 inch thick weighed 9.8 kilograms. Their recommended PSI pressure is 18 to 20 PSI. Those boards have both got the same construction, and that is a woven drop stitch construction. A woven drop stitch is a lighter base drop stitch in its physical weight, so it's much easier for moving and transporting around. I'll speak a bit more about drop stitches and the differences of them when I speak about these 2 other boards in a minute. So you have the 6 inch and the 5 inch thick board. A thicker board is going to take more weight and it's going to be able to be stiffer at a lower PSI. But if you're lighter, you're going to be paddling slightly higher out of the water. And really for lighter paddlers, sub 75 kg, 80 kg, you don't really need that extra thickness in the board unless you're going to be putting a lot of weight on it. The easiest way to look at it, if you're a rider over 75, 80 kilograms, look towards the 6 inch thick board. And if you're a lighter rider, lighter than 75 kilograms, definitely look towards a 5 inch thick board. Really for lighter paddlers, if you're standing on those thicker base boards, you're going to get affected by the wind that much more, the chop, the sea state. You're going to feel a little bit higher out of the water, a bit more detached from that paddling experience. That's generally what most people feel when they get onto a thicker board, being a lighter paddler. What is the 12/6 predominantly designed for? Well, it is obviously designed for touring, but it's really a multi-use board. You could get into paddling fast with this, fitness paddling, cruising, racing. It will fit in the 12/6 race category as well. So it's a very adaptable board that's going to get people moving away from their all-round cruisy shapes onto a much faster paddling board that will allow and encourage you to actually paddle places as well, with or without gear. Now moving on to the Quroc all-water 13-foot This is just a board that has a little bit more length and width to it. It's going to offer you a lot more stability overall, but it's still designed for touring. This board is 13 foot long and 31 inches wide, and it only comes in a 6-inch in thickness. When we weighed this board, it weighs 11.62 kilograms, has the same PSI pressure of 18 to 20 PSI. And this, you can opt for the full package with the carbon paddle, or you can decide not to go for the carbon paddle in the package as well. £789 for the full package, £705 for the package without the carbon paddle. You still get the same full-on package with the extra fins, leash, dry bags, all the other bits and pieces to get you paddling further as well. Construction of this board is different to the other two all-water 12.6 touring boards. This board, like the Yukon, is finished off in a more heavy-duty vertical drop stitch, not a cross-woven drop stitch like the two 12.6s. Now this does make the boards slightly heavier, but this type of drop stitch is much better suited for the longer base boards. Because that board is 31 inches wide, it is going to be more stable and it's going to be able to take heavier riders as well. Definitely riders up to 115, 120 kilos without a problem. And you are going to be able to carry gear as well on top of that. Because that board is longer, you are going to have a little bit more glide because of that, but it's wider as well, so that is going to slow the board down. So I feel that when I've been paddling these two boards, the 12.6 and the 13 foot, they do feel fairly similar in the overall speed because of that length versus width between the two boards. But really, think about the 13 as the more full-on adventurous touring board for the slightly heavier paddler or somebody who wants that more stability. If we're moving on to the 14 foot Yukon, the newest board in the range for this year, 14 foot by 28 inches wide, 6 inches in thickness. When we weighed that, it came in at 12.47 kilos, and that retails as a full package at £949, or without the paddle at £865. Again, the same package as the other three boards. A bit of background about the board, the Yukon. This board was designed to paddle the toughest river race in the world, where they paddle the river Yukon. It is over multiple days. I think it's 10 days, in fact. You need to take all your equipment, all your food, all the spares you need. You need to be able to carry a large amount of gear on your board, and you need to be able to have a board that paddles really comfortable over that long distance as well. That's why it's long, it's slender, it hasn't got too much width overall, so it's going to be very comfortable and easy to paddle, and it is made in that heavy duty vertical drop stitch again. So it hasn't got a problem at standing up to whatever is thrown at it while it's doing that big super long paddle. Now a lot of you might not want to do such a full-on paddle as that, but if you are after a board that you want to paddle further and have as much glide as possible but still have the ability to carry a lot of weight, then the Yukon is the board to go for over the other three boards. Now I'm going to move on to what they're like to paddle on the water, our thoughts and impressions of using these boards, give you a summary of really who should be looking at these boards again, and also now I'm going to speak about the features on these boards and what you get in the package. These boards are packed with features and things to talk about. Quroc have always given the paddler what they want on their paddleboards. You need something that's easy to carry, easy to transport around, so there's handles everywhere. You need something that holds down baggage, holds down cargo really well, but also has the ability to change those cargo points. So there is multiple cargo points on these boards, but they all can come off. They can all become unattached. They can all go over different ways. There's also mounts up at the noses of these boards. You could have a GPS, you could have a navigation light on there. All of the boards have got paddle holders or water bottle holders that you can take off and put in different positions on the board. You could also attach a shoulder strap on these boards as well. The deck pads are all finished off in the same way. Gripped EVA diamond groove going right towards the back of the board, and they've even give you a kicker at the back of the board, so if you're getting into step back turns, you've got something to ram your foot against. Now, see, having the ability to take these bungees off, you could take the paddle holders off, you could make the board much lighter, you could make it into a sort of lightweight, sporty little race board, couldn't you? Being able to unclip these bungees easily is a really good move, and not many other brands have got that ability built into their boards. Looking at the bottom of the boards, they're all the same as well with their fin box setups. So you have 3 fin boxes on this. Central US split fin box, which is a very good tried and tested fin box that makes the board super easy to roll up. So it ticks that easy to transport box. The fin that goes in that box is a US 9-inch FCS fin, a very common fin that a lot of us have got with other SUPs. Really easy to paddle in a straight line, gives you a good amount of stability as well because it's got a good overall wide profile to it. But you can run this in quite a few fin setups actually. So they've got two additional 7-inch side fins, which are click lock fins. The reason they say they put those fins in the package is that if you're touring with these boards and they're heavily loaded up and you come out of the water for a quick drink, quick bite to eat, if you go to put your board down and you have a central fin, it's going to put a lot of strain on that central fin because it's going to have to stay upright and hopefully not bend, or if it does bend, damage the fin box. By having the two 7-inch side fins in, you can place the board on the ground with the weight on it and you won't damage your central fin or your fin boxes. It's a very simple, great move, and it is going to make a massive difference if you've been paddling for a long time and you're tired and the last thing you want to do is worry about damaging your fin. You could run it with the central river fin as well, so it also comes with a really flexible 4.6-inch river fin. So if you're going to be paddling in shallower waters going downstream, you could put that fin in, you're not going to knock it. You could also paddle it with that fin in and the two side fins, which I've done quite a bit. Because the team at Quroc have been working with a lot of paddlers around this touring discipline for a while, they've realised that giving you the option with those sort of 3 different fin setups gives the paddler the most option to get out on the water and paddle in different water conditions and not damage your board or become frustrated, especially when you're tired after you've been touring a long way. Now the bigger Yukon has got everything that I have mentioned already. It has got a few other things as well. It's got additional side foot braces that are handy to wedge your foot against in choppier conditions. Also, if you're paddling and you're a little bit tired, you can just get your feet against them. You could probably also load gear up against those as well if you wanted to do a bit more loading and tying it across the central carry handle. It's also got a nose plastic runner underneath the bow of the board. If you're tired and you've been paddling a long time, having that long plastic strip just keeps you a little bit truer when you're paddling, almost mimics the effect on a more of a V'd nose that you'd find on a composite hardboard. It has got a tail runner as well, which will reduce the drag off the back of the board, making it quicker to paddle. But apart from that, the Yukon is finished off in exactly the same way as the other boards. Now jumping into a bit more information with the package. So if you opt to go for the carbon paddle, you get a very nice lightweight carbon paddle. That's not just been thrown into the package like some other brands have. It's actually designed and it works really well. It is a paddle that we generally will go out and go paddling with. Yes, it's not as full on as a 500-pound on its own full on performance race or touring paddle, but it's a very, very good paddle to have in a package. And if you haven't got a carbon paddle yet, it's definitely well worth getting that paddle. You get a very large dry bag that will fit your board and all of your accessories in. So maybe if you want to take that bag on the water with you, you're going on a one-way trip, you can put all the stuff in there. That's a really nice thing to have. I don't think many other brands have actually got a dry bag of that size at all in their packages. You also got a mini little dry bag as well, which has got a repair kit in there as well. So you have another dry bag. You've got a nice, good quality, thick coiled leash that comes with a standard ankle Velcro attachment, or you can change it to a waist leash attachment as well. Having the extra safety built in there. Remember, if you're paddling on any moving waters, you want to have a quick release on you and have it readily available around your waist, and make sure you know how to use it as well. Check out our other videos on SUPsafe if you don't know what I mean about using the correct leash. You also get a great Quroc recycled wheelie bag as well, which is made out of recycled plastic bottles. It's a nice, comfortable bag that fits everything in. When it comes to pumping this board up, you get a GRI pump, which is a really nice test-winning pump for us. And they've had this pump in the packages for a few years now. It's a very easy pump to use, easily gets the air in the board. It's a two-way pump, so when the pumping gets hard, you can switch the valve over. Very nice quality pump to have in the package. Talking about putting the air into these boards and the deflection or bend of these boards, we did our deflection tests with all 4 of these boards. I had a flexion test where we put it on a gap of 1.5 meters apart, and we put a weight of 75 kilograms in the center of the board, and we measure how much the board bends and deflects. Now we do this with all inflatable paddle boards, and we've even started doing it with some of the composite race boards as well, just to see if they bend at all. So these boards are all pumped up to 20 psi, starting off with the two 12.6s. This is where you are going to see the biggest difference, because obviously one is 5 inches and one is 6 inches. A 6-inch thick board is always stiffer than a 5-inch thick board, so we know the 6-inch board is going to be stiffer. Pumped up to 20 psi, the 6-inch 12.6 dropped 10 millimeters, and the 5-inch thick board dropped 13 millimeters. So not a massive difference in it. They're both very stiff boards. The stiffest boards we've ever had on test, I think, have been 7, and the most flexible or averagely flexible boards are sitting around 15, 16, and that would be a 6-inch thick board. So even that 5-inch thick board is very stiff at 13 millimeters. Moving on to the 2 other boards, both these boards pumped up to 20 psi. The 13-foot dropped 10 millimeters, again another 6-inch thick board, but the Yukon dropped 9 millimeters, so it's a slightly stiffer board, the Yukon. That could be to do with the side edge that's on this board, or it could be to do with an extra layer of material on the rail here that gives it a little bit more stiffness, and obviously it's going to make it even more hard wearing. Naturally, the Yukon should be the toughest and stiffest board out there because it is designed for the harshest environments, and you're going to want to have the stiffest board as possible when you're paddling that long distances. Now let's talk about what our observations were using these boards on the water. First off, looking at the nose shapes of these boards. All these boards have a refined nose. That is where the top and the bottom of the board is more pulled in, and it gives you a slightly more of a point on the nose of that board. Now that does make a massive difference when you're paddling in choppy water. Any water that hits the nose of the board isn't going to stop so much, and it's going to wrap up over around the board, so it's a much nicer board to paddle. Quite a few years ago now, we reviewed a Quroc board, and they didn't have that refined nose, and they were a really good board, but it was the one thing that let it down. So now they have those on all of these touring based boards, so they're much more comfortable to paddle in all water conditions. Looking at the outline shape of all of these boards, again fairly similar. They're trying to be nicely pulled in towards the nose, so they're very efficient at paddling through the water, but their rails are fairly parallel all the way towards the back of the board, and the back of the board is offered with more of a square tail. So they're giving you as much stability as possible throughout most of the board, so there it can carry the weight, it's nice and stable, but obviously the 13-foot is slightly wider in that tail because it's wider overall. And these 12.6s are actually a different shape to the previous Quroc Touring all-water 12.6, with a bit more width up towards the nose and back towards the tail to give you a bit more stability when you're paddling. The nose rockers of these boards, there is a small amount of nose rocker, which is where the front of the board curves up, but it doesn't need that much nose rocker with that more refined nose, again, because if any wave breaks on the board, it can simply just go over the top of the board and doesn't slow you down. So really, the rocker, the outline shape and the nose shape really allows these boards to paddle well, but be stable at the same time, which is exactly what you want when you're going to be touring. All these boards are incredibly adaptable. So obviously they're full-on touring boards, and they are set up to go full-on touring. Even the smaller 12.6s will take you touring and will take you over multiple days touring as well. But as I said earlier, I love the way you can strip stuff back. You can take the bungees off. You can reduce to just one fin setup if you want to make the board faster. So they are very adaptable. So not just for tourers, they're going to be great for lots of other people, but generally wanting to paddle further and faster. I've been playing around with quite a lot of the fin setups over the last few weeks. Single finned, side fins, 3 fins. I do find that generally the best fin for tracking is still the big central single fin. So if you are still paddling in deeper water, if you're not loading your board up really heavily and you need those double side fins for putting your board down with your weight on the beach, still go with the single fin. That is going to give you better tracking. But if you're paddling in any shallow water or moving down a river, you can easily jump on the double fin or even the single river fin at the back. That's where tracking doesn't really matter so much. So overall straight line tracking is still better with the bigger single 9-inch touring fin. Another observation is even the narrower Yukon and the 30-inch wide 12.6 is still very stable when you've loaded it up. In many ways, sometimes the more weight you put on the board, the lower it sits in the water, and it gives you that even more planted feel. Again, if you're thinking about that, that's where you might need to think about the 5-inch or the 6-inch thick board to make sure you get the right weight for you. And another observation from us is the quality versus the value for money. So these boards are very, very well finished off. In fact, there isn't anything I can see wrong with any of these boards. Deck pads are all nicely stuck on. There's no excess glue. The bungees are all finished off. The graphics are all nicely stuck on. The rocker lines are great. The side profiles are good looking down the rails. There's no PVC that's stuck on wobbly down the rails. Very well finished off product. So they're obviously putting a lot of care into the detail at the factory level to making sure these boards are finished off right. Other information on Quroc and these boards: 6-year warranty you get with these boards. I think it's a 3-year standard warranty and then a 3-year extended warranty, which is on the seams, which is all you need. We've got Quroc boards that have been kicking around our container for 5 years now, and they still look just the same as they did when they came out of the bag first time. I know there's a lot of very happy customers out there. You see that on their Facebook, on all their other social channels, on their website. Lots of good feedback, so that's very high praise indeed. I know that the deliveries and all the customer service is very, very good. Quroc are doing the right things when it comes to the environment, comes to the packaging of these boards. When these boards all came rolled up in their bags, they were all rolled up in tissue paper. No plastic, I think, at all in the package. And they have got some very good environmental initiatives with their brand and stuff like recycled materials in their backpacks as well. So to finish off with a summary of the 4 boards from Quroc. The two 12.6s, these are going to be great entry-level boards getting you into touring or paddling faster, fitness paddling or racing. You're not going to have to buy these boards and feel like you're going to have to paddle them a long distance every weekend to justify having them. They are very easy boards to use that have got a good amount of width and a good amount of length for a lot of paddlers out there. And obviously being a 5-inch and 6-inch, they're going to suit a large range of people. Now the 13-foot is a board that sort of sits on its own. It's a great, slightly longer, wider base touring board. It's going to be very good for a lot of the slightly heavier tourers or the people who are not so confident on their feet. They want that more stability because, as I said, take 110, 120 kilo person and it can still take a load of gear as well. But the Yukon is the full-on touring base board. It's not going to be for everyone because it is that bigger, longer base board. And definitely, if you're not going on those full-on, long-distance multi-age paddles, you could probably easily look at the smaller 12.6 or 13-foot. The Yukon is the board that wants to be paddled further, or it's the board that wants to allow you to have as much glide as possible for its width. 28 wide, it's much narrower than the other boards. It's going to be a little bit more tippy than the other boards, but if you're paddling on flat water, it is a board that will want to go and keep going. Looking at these 4 boards, I think Quroc have got a very complete touring range. It has something for everyone. It has something for the full-on tourer that wants to challenge themselves on maybe the paddle of a lifetime, and it has something for people getting into paddling around the riverbend for the first time as well. If you are interested in paddling further, faster and touring this year, Quroc, have a look, contact the guys at Quroc or ask us a question. We'll happily advise which board we think will be best for you. But definitely from a valued product, the Quroc touring range is definitely right up there. I hope you found this overview interesting and informative. There's lots of information in there. Any questions and comments, please let us know. Any current Quroc paddlers, I'd love to hear what boards you've been paddling and how you're getting on with them. Thank you very much for watching this video. My name is Ruben. I will see you on another SUP, surf or foil video very soon.